Now I'd like to introduce Joe Krier with the SH-130 Concession Company. Joe's from San Antonio and is past president and CEO of the San Antonio Greater San Antonio Chamber of Commerce. He was elected to the SH-130 Concession Company last October. He's well regarded for his expertise in transportation and infrastructure issues. He attended the University of Texas back about the time I was there, which was in the 60s. Got his law degree there, and was married to the former state senator, Cindy Taylor Krier. I'd like to introduce Joseph Krier.
Morning, everybody. Morning. I'm really delighted to be here, and Tom, I want to commend you on your time. My wife can sing all the verses of All I Want a Hippopotamus for Christmas. It is her favorite song during the holiday season. I want to start, and I'm going to end this way, by congratulating you all. I'll talk about toll roads and highways in a little bit. I was so impressed sitting here, seeing the broad group of people, Scott, that you all bring together here. There are few communities in this country that bring their leadership together on a regular basis. One of the things we've been very proud of in San Antonio, I served as chamber exec there from 1987 to 2007, and in that role had a chance to be a part of just about every major economic development in that community during a pretty important period of time for us. We were able to pull together a group like this on a specific project, like a Toyota or bringing SeaWorld or some of the other things that we did. When you can pull together the leadership of a community from education and business and civic and law enforcement on a regular basis, it gives you such an incredible edge over other communities that have to stop and get organized when opportunities present themselves. You're already organized and you're already talking to each other. So A, congratulations on that. B, congratulations on being what I call the 10% that make things happen. You know, we've got this 1% Occupy movement going on around the country. I have often said that in our country, it's the 10% who make things happen. If you look at your church, about 10% of the members are the ones who really get together and make the budget happen and the operations work. If you look at your Little League team, your Boy Scout troop, your Girl Scout troop, United Way, generally it's about 10% of the people who go on who really make things happen. I know at our chamber, about 10% of our members were the ones who made everything happen. We had about 2,000 members during the time I was there. And I would guess that that rule is true in this community. And you represent that 10% who are willing to take the time and give back to their community, number one. Who are willing to take the time and think about what we might be, rather than just letting events come to you. So thank you for doing that, and congratulations on doing that. I'm going to take a little time to talk about the role of highways in economic development, which I think is why Scott wanted me to come visit with you. I had a chance to do this with the Ronfels Economic Development Foundation some time ago. But let me start out by asking you a few questions so I know a little bit more about you. How many of you in this Austin have spent your whole life in this area? Show of hands. Tiny number. How many have been here for more than 10 years? How many have been here less than 10 years, more than 5 years? How many have been here less than 3 years? A couple. Few. What that tells me is, no surprise, this is a community where most people are from somewhere else. This is a community where most people decided to be here for one reason or another. I always tell people I wasn't born in Texas, but I got here as soon as I could, and clearly you got here as soon as you could. And that has an impact on the kind of community you have, because what you share with each other is a decision that this is what you wanted to be, or that the opportunity that brought you here was something you didn't want to pass up on. So that's helpful to know. Next question, how many of you have a toll tag? About 3/4. I brought along, I always do this everywhere I go to speak. I figured that would be the case, but I brought along a toll tag application and said everybody's place. If you already have a toll tag, take it anyhow and give it to somebody who doesn't have a toll tag. Second question, how many of you have used your toll tag in either Houston or Dallas? Good number. I don't see that in that high number in as many of the groups as I'm speaking, and I know that everybody who has a toll tag uses it here. It really has revolutionized the way we travel in Texas. Last pop quiz question. How many of you were here and remember when the proposal for toll roads in this area was very controversial and had some pretty well organized opposition? Yeah, we still have that in San Antonio and still haven't built any. It is amazing to me how quickly that opposition, Mayor, just disappeared. And I often say that it disappeared when, number one, when you opened some toll roads, and number two, when the anti-toll road people looked up and realized that within 6 months of that complex up here opening, more than 200,000 people in this area have toll tags. It's a little hard to be opposed to something that almost 250,000 people are using on a regular basis. So it really has made a difference in that regard. Highways are, in my judgment, one of the most essential components of economic development. A couple of quick examples. In the 1950s, a good friend of mine at the time, not living anymore, Governor Dolph Briscoe, as a member of the legislature, led the effort in which the state of Texas invested in the farm-to-market road system, which is today the expanded county road system that we all take for granted. He did that because in those days farmers and cattlemen couldn't get their crops and cattle to market easily in bad weather because most of those roads were dirt roads or collegiate roads. That county and farm-to-market road system revolutionized business in this state and resulted in an unparalleled growth of businesses around the places where those county roads, farm-to-market roads intersected and took people. In the 1950s and 60s, President Dwight Eisenhower, who I continue to regard as one of the great American presidents, proposed and enacted the interstate highway system. That highway system revolutionized business in this country. I want you to imagine for just one moment that there is no I-35, although as much as I'm stuck on it, that really might be a good thing. But if we didn't have in San Antonio I-35, I-37, and I-10, what that would mean to the economy of my community, what it would have meant to the community of Austin if I-35 had never been constructed. So the interstate highway system revolutionized business in America and resulted in unparalleled growth of business because of what business could do to manufacture and ship products from coast to coast and border to border relatively easily. I was talking to somebody over a cup of coffee here this morning, and I said, in retrospect, the only mistake we made during the Eisenhower years is we started referring to them as freeways. They were never free. We paid for them with taxes. We paid for them with gas taxes, of course, and in those days we had an abundance of gas taxes for two reasons. The country was growing like a weed, number one, and number two, we were all driving gas guzzlers, and they used a lot of gas, and gas was very cheap in those days. When I left the University of Texas Law School, some of you older folks will remember this, and went to Houston to start as a young lawyer. Every day when I went to work, I'd pass the Tenneco station, and you'll remember we used to have gas wars. You know, there was a time when I was going to work and they had a sign up and gas was 29 cents a gallon. This was in the 1970s. Well, that encouraged people to do a lot of driving, which produced a lot of gas taxes, which built an awful lot of highways. across this nation. That, of course, is no longer the case. And what we have seen nationally is an increasing threat to the financial integrity of the gas fund, which allows the federal government to support highway construction. And in Texas, we have seen a dramatic downturn in the gas tax revenues for the state of Texas. And what that means, and I hope many of you have heard this, we are now at the point where the gas tax revenues for the state of Texas will only fund the maintenance of the existing state highway system. There's not going to be any new dollars from TxDOT in the years ahead for new highway construction. The state gas tax is 20 cents a gallon on what we're now paying, $3.40, $3.30. It was last raised in 1991. The federal gas tax is 18 cents of that $3 plus. It was last raised in 1993. I think the huge policy mistake which we made in this country at the federal level and at the state level was not tying the gas tax as we do the sales tax into a percentage of what you pay. 18 cents a gallon was a lot of money when gas was selling for $1 a gallon. When it's $3.50 a gallon, it's still only 18 cents. And in the meantime, inflation has ratcheted up and up and up and up, so that 18 cents that the state collects is now in fact producing about 12 cents in inflation-adjusted dollars. And of course, the second thing that has happened, how many people here drive a Prius? Anybody? The second thing that has happened is fleet averages and gasoline averages have plummeted. I mean, I remember when I drove a car that got 12 miles to the gallon, and that was kind of typical. I'm sure many of you here do. Nobody drives cars anymore that get 12 miles a gallon unless they're driving an antique car, unless they've got more money than they know what to do with. So this is the reality we face. The freeways were never free. We paid for them with a commodity that is in dramatic decline nationally and statewide. And we live in an era in which people have decided that they don't want government to raise their taxes, whether they be gas taxes or any other taxes. And as a result of that, we don't have the money to build new highways. The counterpoint to that is this state, you know, I love your website, by the way, but I'm just fascinated by these numbers. Look at this, almost 1,400% population growth since 2000. We are in a state in which these kinds of numbers are happening all over the place. I just finished doing an economic development effort for the city of Bernie in our neck of the woods. Bernie doubled in population between the 2000 and 2010 census. They project that they will double again between the 10 and the 20 census, and they think they will double again between the 10 and the 30 census. That's happening everywhere. San Antonio is one of the fastest growing communities in the country. I don't have to tell you about your region here. The last demographic projection I saw was that between now and 2040, which is not that far down the road, the greater Austin area, which you're in, is going to grow by 1.2 million people. The greater San Antonio area, you know, your greater area runs down to San Marcos. Ours runs from New Braunfels to Seguin. Greater San Antonio area is projected to grow during that same period of time by 1 million people. What that means is between now and 2040 or so, we're going to have over 2 million more people who want to get to work, who want to get their kids to school, who want to get to stores, who want to get to church, and who want to get to wherever they go to recreate and have fun and play. I'm not perfect at reading the future, but I am pretty confident that in 2030 and 2040, most of those people are still going to be doing that in automobiles. And that means we've got to build a heck of a lot of highways between now and then, or we are going to be a gridlock state, and we're going to see a lot of this nice business you all have been talking about moving somewhere else. When I was part of the team that brought Toyota to San Antonio, one of the things that they told us was most persuasive when they were narrowing down what started out as about 300 semifinalist cities they looked at around the country. One of the most persuasive things to them was twofold. A, our existing interstate highway system and our double loop, Loop 410, Loop 1604. And B, the plans which we shared with them for the SH-130 toll road, because Toyota operates on this, parts aren't delivered until they're literally about to be put into the car. So if their vehicle delivering that truckload of parts gets stuck on I-35, they may have to stop the assembly line until they wait until those parts get there. They cannot function any other way. That was a huge sales point for us. And I bet Scott will tell you that there's not an economic development, job-related opportunity that this community or San Antonio has ever looked at that we didn't say to them, let us talk to you about our road and highway access in this part of the world, and what our plans are to make that road and highway system better than it is today. No company is not interested in that. Even these high-tech companies that are able to operate a great deal off of the internet. So as a result of that, we have developed a new tool in the toolbox, and one of them is this SH-130 project, and I'm really proud of this. This is relatively new off the press. I've been pushing our folks to produce this for a long time, but I've got it at your place, and I hope you'll hang on to it. A really good detailed map on the entire SH-130, running from north of Georgetown all the way down to I-10 near Seguin, where it will tie in. My role of that is segments 1 through 4 were built by TxDOT, and as you all know who have taken it from here, it drops you off on 35 today around Buda. At one time, when I started with the Chamber in 1987, about 3 years later, we started regularly meeting with the Austin Chamber of Commerce to push the legislature and to push TxDOT into funding SH-130 as a state-paid, state-funded freeway that would take the pressure off of I-35, because even in the 1980s we foresaw what was going to happen to I-35. TxDOT realized when it got into this that it was not going to be able to fund the entire thing, and so they were able to build the toll system that runs from Georgetown to where it plunks in about Buda right now. And segments 4 and 5, which are the segments that we are building, are the segments that are in the red dotted lines there that run all the way down to Seguin. That leg will open by November of this year. The whole thing will be open. You'll be able to travel nonstop 94 miles, roughly, from Seguin to north of Georgetown at 80 miles an hour or better. And depending, Chief, on how close you pay attention to the speed limits. Although there has been some talk, and there's some serious talk about raising that speed limit to 85, but it will for sure be at 80. The highway is built to withstand higher speeds, to support higher speeds than that if it had to. We built the last 2 segments with a private for-profit corporation called SH-130 Concessions, Inc. That is a joint venture between the Zachary Corporation of San Antonio. I suspect many of you have heard about Zachary. It's a global construction company, family-owned, based in San Antonio, been around forever and ever. Done projects like Hemisphere, built nuclear plants around the country. They've been building highways forever. They've been one of the big contractors for TxDOT forever. They partnered with a Spanish company named Cintra. Cintra is owned by another Spanish company named Ferrovial. It's one of the largest construction companies in the world. They build these projects all over the world. They do a lot of concession projects. They bought the Indiana Tollway, which is a 100-mile plus tollway that runs, many of you know, east to west through Indiana from the state of Indiana for a couple of $1 billion. They run Heathrow Airport in London. If you've flown over to London and landed at Heathrow Airport, that airport is run on a long-term lease by Ferrovial. So these guys have been building big projects around the world. They partnered with Zachary and invested $1.2 billion, that's billion with a B, dollars, into building what you see as the dotted line portion on this map. Now, let me just stop a second, because we're all Texans and we're all sensitive to this no new taxes era in which we live. That means that we were able to build the last 2 legs of this thing and complete it without going to the legislature for any more money from the general fund, without going to TxDOT and asking for gas tax money, which they no longer have, and without seeking any kind of special legislation, special tax districts, special ways that we sometimes fund these things. And it is 100% privately built, and it will be 100% privately maintained. So what that means is that if there's a pothole, our people will fix it. And they will fix it for the entire time. And they get a big chunk, obviously, of the toll revenues from it and get to set the toll price on it. And the state of Texas gets a slug of a percentage of those toll revenues, and the state of Texas got a slug of money up front from the consortium in order to build this thing. It is a new tool in the toolbox. It is something that is going on all over the country. They are currently doing a concession-based major toll complex project in Dallas that our company is a part of, Centris is a part of. Centris bidding right now for a huge toll complex that the Houston Toll Authority wants to build. I think it's called the Grand Parkway Project down in Houston, which will add sort of an outer loop to the Houston economy. Why are we doing this? We're doing it for several reasons, which I mentioned earlier, that the traditional funding mechanisms have run dry. Secondly, it is, and I like this concept, it's a user pays concept. You know, the thing about the gas tax, if you ever have thought about it, is all these great highways that we've had in Texas today. Doug, if you were a rancher in Alpine, Texas, and the only thing you ever did was take your cattle to Alpine to get them out of there, you probably had an interest in the state highway that got them out of Alpine, but you were paying a gas tax that was building a lot of freeways in Houston and Dallas that you were never, ever going to drive on. And you might legitimately say, why am I doing this? Why am I having to pay these gas taxes to build highways that I'm never going to use? Now, I've got an answer for that, and many of you probably do, but we've got selfish people everywhere, and that would be an attitude. The nice thing about this project is, if you don't use it, you don't pay for it. You don't pay for it at the gas pump. You don't pay for it with your property taxes. You don't pay for it with your income taxes. You don't pay for it with your federal gas taxes. If you use it, you pay for it. If you don't use it, you don't pay for it. And you don't have to use it, which is the other great thing about it. If you want to keep driving on I-35, you go right ahead. And as you can see from this map, there's a lot of other options. Frankly, our hope is, we hope, our goal in marketing this thing is to pull a lot of the 18-wheel truck traffic off of I-35, especially that 18, if any of you all take 35 down to Laredo, which I do periodically, and you've just got one 18-wheeler after another. If we can pull those folks off at Seguin, we can put some slack back into I-35 for people who don't want to pay the tolls, and we hope that will be the case. We're certainly depending on that being the case because we want to earn our money back from this. 1.2 billion is more than a little small change. I am on this board because Zachary was, under the corporate structure, allowed to appoint one independent director to the board. They chose Mary Peterson, the former Secretary of Commerce in the Bush administration, and Centra was allowed to appoint one independent director to the board. and they chose to appoint me. And we're independent directors. We're not employed by in either of the companies, and our job is to be independent eyes and ears on that board and to make sure this project runs the way it ought to run, and that it run that way with high ethics and high integrity. Our project will be completed, as I mentioned, by November of this year. We are currently ahead of schedule. We are on budget. You can't say that about a lot of construction projects, but we're thrilled to death that it's the case for this. It will be one of the most high technology tollways in the country. There will be, unlike some of the toll roads that you'll see in Dallas and Houston, there will be no occupied toll collection anywhere on it. It is all done electronically. If you do not have a toll tag, the little tiny electronic camera is going to take a picture of your license plate, and you'll get a bill from the SH-130 group or TxDOT, as the case may be, telling you what you owe them. If you have a toll tag in the long term, you get up to a 25% discount over what the cost would be if you were going by and throwing coins into it every time. So there's a real incentive to using it. The last point I want to make is that this ties into something you all have a great interest in, and that is economic growth. Doug and I were talking earlier about the cattle business and the cattle that he runs in this part of the country. I noticed when I got off the tollway this morning that I was passing the field with these giant rolls of hay in it. And I thought to myself, Doug, with all due respect, 10 years from now, you're not going to see that. We're going to see alongside this highway, and at the intersections you hit the second you exit this highway, the kind of development, commercial development, apartment development, school district development, college development, that we now see along the interstates around this country. Rick Perry, when he was Lieutenant Governor, appointed me to a panel that drew TxDOT's strategic plan about a dozen years ago. I was the only guy on the panel who came from an economic development background, and I discovered in looking at the previous TxDOT strategic plan that nowhere in it did it say a word about making decisions about highways with one of the factors. They had a whole list of factors, traffic congestion, population growth projections, all the things you can imagine, but it never said a word about economic development. I got them to write into it that one of their concerns in building state highways in the future would be the impact on economic development and the kinds of incentives for economic development that those highways would provide. We know they do it because we have seen it. You know they do it because you have seen it. And we are going to see it in a dramatic way in your part of the state, probably more dramatically than in many other areas of the state. And what that means, when you get that kind of economic development growth, is you get a dramatic increase, among other things, in what? Your property tax revenues, Mayor. And what that allows a community to do is to invest in the infrastructure, local streets, drainage projects, parks, all the things that provide for the quality of life that we all think a community ought to provide us with. You can't do that without county tax revenues, without city tax revenues, and economic development, and whether it's strip centers or manufacturing plants or IT plants, Doug, or any of the other things that this community wants to recruit here, you can't have those things unless you've got good highways. And toll roads provide you with that additional tool in your toolkit. And I would encourage you to support others who believe that that is the case, because that battle is not completely settled in this state. You know, we've had some serious fistfights in the legislature. And I want to close with two things and then talk about whatever you'd like and let you all get on to work. One of them is, if you have any doubts about economic development. I got up here a couple of days ago. My wife does some work at the Capitol. So we've got an apartment here, and when we do, I get the Austin Statesman every day. This is yesterday's Statesman. With all due respect to a competing community, but it tells you what highways do. The front page of the Austin Statesman has got Pflugerville landing another business with 170 jobs. And the interesting thing to me, Scott, the reason I brought it along, the little inset photograph, of course, is the local highway system here, which you all enjoy. The second thing was that was in that same issue of the newspaper was Hays County Commissioners meeting to pass a resolution endorsing the Texas 45 expansion, which in my judgment, and I'm not from your neck of the woods, but I know enough about this to know it's essential that that kind of thing be done, because as a practical matter, as I said to somebody earlier, I usually tell people to turn these things off, but I do some consulting work for AT&T, so I never do it. So you see it in the paper all the time. And what you see in the paper are developments that would not have occurred if somebody was not able to say, we've got some great highways, we've got toll roads for those that want to use that option, and we're going to build more of them. And that brings me to my last point, which is thank you again for what you do as a community, and I'm so impressed with it. But B, we have a big challenge in this state, and it's an ongoing debate about whether or not we are going to invest in ourselves to make our state a better place, invest in building our public school system, invest in building our higher education system. I happen to be one of those. I'm a conservative Republican, and I'm proud of it, but I'm also an economic development expert, and I believe that you can't cut your way to prosperity. That at some point you've got to decide that some things are worth investing in. You made that judgment here when you voted for a tax increase to fund your higher education facility. My hat's off to you on that. That is a very hard thing to do in today's, I don't want to pay any more taxes for anything. I swear to God, if somebody said that for a 1% sales tax, you could go down to City Hall and get a free ticket to heaven, there'd be a huge anti-tax increase group even for that. So keep in mind that we didn't get where we are today. Your community, Austin, San Antonio, Texas didn't get to be where it is today unless we had invested a lot of money and paid taxes in building highways, in building schools, in building colleges and universities. And I'm not one of those that believe it's time for all the rest of us to pull up the ladder and say, well, gosh, we've had a great ride, wish you all the best, bye-bye. You are a community that believes in investing in itself. My hat's off to you. I look forward in the decade ahead to seeing you move this adventure down the road. You are clearly people who are making your community a better place than it would have been but for what you're doing. Thank you all for having me over here today. Thank you so much. Now, if anybody's got any questions, yes, sir.
Al Wellborn, just a local retired old man, but I'm very curious. First of all, I want to say I really appreciate your presentation.
You bet.
I'm very curious, I guess, two-faced question. What are you doing and how has it been accepted to increase commercial 18-wheelers to use the I-30 corridor? And are they accepted? It doesn't seem like to me I see enough trucks on that thing.
That is an ongoing effort. This young woman here, Sherry Pfeiffer, has been hired by SH-130 to work on that specific project. We are doing a lot of marketing directly to the big trucking companies by calling on them directly.
What approach do you take when you present it?
Well, the pitch we're able to make to them, the ultimate pitch is time is money. You know, yes, it's a few miles longer, but if you can travel dependably at 80 miles an hour, and you can skirt downtown San Antonio's traffic and downtown Austin's traffic. You can get your product, whatever it is, delivered as quick or quicker than you would with all the unpredictability of 35. So it's a time is money pitch. You're trading some toll expense off for a sort of guaranteed delivery time. One of the other things we're looking at, and we're talking to some people about this, and we've got a proposal out for bids, and we've been approaching folks like Valero. We want to put a major truck stop on our leg of SH-130. There needs to be something that, you know how these trucks are. They don't want to have a place to stop and get coffee and get fuel and kibitz and, you know, all that kind of stuff. So right now we don't have that on any of the legs of this thing. So that's part of our, it's a financial strategy because we hope the darn thing will make money, but it's really a marketing strategy to give us an additional tool to say to the trucking industry. Was there a second part to your question?
Oh, it was just what's being done to enhance that.
No, we are very concerned about that, and Sherry and her team are talking to these guys all the time. You bet. Yes, sir. Tom.
One thing that's confusing to me in Houston, when you get off the toll road, the tag lanes are always on the left. Here, you never know when you get off if it's going to be on the left or the right. You don't know until you get there and have to make an adjustment. Why couldn't they put them all on the same side?
The answer is I don't know.
Okay. Suggestion there.
Yeah, that was a TxDOT design project. I will be glad to revisit with them from time to time. It's a really good point. You know, one of my concerns being on this board is if you're driving north from San Antonio, there's currently no marketing that says yoo-hoo, you know, toll road left ahead, skip Austin, save 20 minutes. I mean, you don't know there is a toll road until you get to Butte, and all of a sudden there's this sign that says toll road exit. I think we've all got to do a much better job of educating the state. We're going to be putting some significant resources. You all will appreciate this. A huge amount of the traffic back and forth through here are the snowbirds. Coming down to the valley, some of them come down here, but they all go through here. We'd all love to have them stop off and spend a little time. So we're going to be doing a lot of marketing in the northern part of the country to folks to say, hey, you can do this. And we're going to be doing a lot of it with social media to get on things like Google and places you would look up. One of my problems is I've got a car that, I don't know how many of you have a car that has OnStar. I do, and I use it all the time. My wife got it the other day when she was north of Austin, come back to San Antonio, and she got on and said, listen, I want to take the toll road back. And the OnStar people, we still hadn't gotten us into their system, and they number one, they were incredulous that anybody would want voluntarily to get onto a toll system, and B, they really didn't know how to talk her onto it. So we're getting those kinds of things fixed and getting into the mapping systems and the electronic mapping systems. And you know, when you get on Yahoo or all these things, where you kind of say, I'm going from here to there to make sure that this is given to you as an option. Yes, ma'am.
Preface my question by saying I'm pretty naive in this whole area, but I love the toll roads. Why a Spanish company? Why a for-profit Spanish company? Why not a U.S. company? I don't know. I mean, to me, the profits are going to Spain. Yeah. And I sure would love them to be in the U.S.
Well, I would too, but we live in a global economy. You know, by way of example, our country is building huge. Zachary, for example, built a big nuclear plant in India, has done huge construction projects in China. So we live in a world in which everybody is doing things elsewhere, and I always, you know, I'd love everything we use in this country to be built by people who live here, but it's just not, if you want to carry that to an extreme, you can no longer shop at Walmart, because 80% of what's in Walmart is made somewhere else, most of it in China. So Sintra wound up doing this because they made the best proposal, because Zachary felt they were globally respected as one of the best and highest integrity. Zachary, being a family-owned company, really only wants to do business with people that share their values of high-quality business. And so that's why Zachary chose Sintra. Sintra is, as I said, doing this stuff worldwide. They wanted to get down into this part of the country, and they made the best proposal that was out there. you know, most of the time, if a U.S. company isn't doing it, it's because somebody proposed a better arrangement. But you know, we've got Toyota in San Antonio. We're thrilled to death to have them, but every time you buy a Toyota, that money's going to Japan. It's not going to San Antonio, even though they make it here. We've got a half a dozen Canadian aerospace companies and what used to be Kelly Air Force Base, and money from those planes is going straight to Toronto. So it's just, I hear you, I understand it. At one level, I should mention, I would love for Texas to decide that there would be no toll roads, and that Texas was going to build all highways with state gas tax money. We were going to raise the gas tax by 50 cents a gallon, which, by the way, is about what it would take. Well, we're not going to do that. And so, if it's a choice between no roads or toll roads, I'm for toll roads. Yes, sir.
Drive the tollway nearly every day. Absolutely love 80 miles an hour. Working downtown Austin. My concern has to do with. I would love to drive 100 if I could. Long as I don't know what it's rated for, but with the trying to get the 18-wheelers on there, two concerns. One, speed differentials create very unsafe conditions.
Yeah.
Is there anything that can be done? I don't know if it's a communication or a capability issue with some of the big trucks. You got concrete trucks, you got ABS, and I love that they're on there. I just wish they'd drive faster.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, because that speed differential, you got somebody running 85 and somebody running 60.
Yeah.
That creates a dangerous situation.
That may well be a problem, and I guess the short answer is we're going to have to work our way through that. You know, I think what everybody needs to anticipate is we're going to make adjustments to this as we go along. You know, right now, as you well know, there's not enough traffic on any of these toll roads that it's a factor. Enough traffic, truck or vehicle. That's going to change for two reasons. One, we're opening up this leg, which we hope will throw more on it. But two, the population. You had 2 million people here in the next 20 years. I mean, we're going to be using toll roads. So you raise a good question, and I think we're going to have to make some adjustments. I don't know what they're going to be. My sense, of course, is that vehicle technology is also improving apace, and I think that's going to have an impact on all of this. Yes, sir.
Is there any plans on a northern route from Georgetown towards the Metroplex?
There's talk about it. There's a lot of conversations. Our folks and others would love to bid on a project, but there are no current concrete plans. Those of you that drive 35 to Dallas know how awful that. Matter of fact, a lot of our friends go up 281 now. That route, even though it's longer, just because they don't run into as much truck traffic. But I'm not aware of any firm plans on it. Anybody else? Doug? Yes, ma'am. Last one.
With this question, would they ever think of telling the trucks, no trucks left lane? That's what I'd like to Austin. So that,
I know we do that here. I don't know whether they're going to. I think we're going to have to get. We're going to have to get to the level of truck traffic where that's a factor. It's certainly an option going forward. I don't think there's any plans for it because right now it's not a problem. I'm going to wrap up and let y'all have it back up. I've got to tell a story on Scott. When I sent him an email saying, how do I get here? I said, my wife and I have an apartment just off of Mopac in Enfield. And he sent me this email that said, get on Mopac, go to SH45, get on SH130. He said, you'll be here in 20 minutes. And I'm thinking, you've got to be kidding. It is impossible to move that distance in the middle of the rush hour, and it took me less than 20 minutes to get here. I mean, y'all imagine how long it would have taken me to get from Enfield and where Mopac is 15 years ago to right here at 7 a.m. in the morning. I mean, it has been a game-changing development. Well, listen, I'm going to be around here for a little while longer if anybody has any questions.
Joe, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
I just want to mention that our tag is conveniently connected, and it's because of 130. And please come back anytime now that you know how easy it is.
Thank you all very much.
Appreciate it.